Hi, how is everyone doing? And welcome back to my channel. Hi, how are you? I hope you guys are doing really well. I hope everyone's doing okay with the new restrictions that were put into place, even though there wasn't really anything too crazy. I'm from Alberta, if you guys don't know yet, and we just got some crazy restrictions put in. Crazy, I mean, things that should have been happened months ago. So I'll just quickly go over the restrictions that came in. One was schools K to 12 are now online, which is valid. The other one was now if you want a massage, you have to book an appointment, which I thought you always had to do that. That could just be me, but I thought you always had to book an appointment if you wanted a massage, but I don't know. It could be wrong. I never just really ever surprised anyone. I was like, I want a massage. I always thought you had to book an appointment, but who knows what Jason is doing? Good old Ken baby. But yeah, so people who don't know me after my rant about the restrictions, my name is MacLean. I am here every Tuesday and Thursday for you to talk about a true crime that has happened here in Canada and to also do my makeup. So if you are struggling with the restrictions, struggling with mental health or anything like that, this is the perfect video for you. Just to sit back, listen, and just enjoy life. Let's also take a quick mention to mention Jeffrey and Dahmer that are on my face today. They wanted to make a quick appearance because they seem to not care that I have to film and just came out stronger. Jeffrey here was one of those really tiny zits that I thought would look way better if I mangled my face. So that's why he came out to play. Disgusting. I know. I will try my best to cover up, but we don't know. So my giveaway. So I just want to let you know that this is the end of the giveaway and I will be listing the winner down below. I'll be drawing it first thing in the morning to, well, I guess today. And you will be whoever the winner is, you're the winner. So I will DM you and I will let you know how to claim your prize. So thank you all for entering. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. It was just, I had a lot of entries and it was a fun giveaway and I really appreciate it and everything and the love and support everyone's been showing me. So I think last week we ended off halfway through with the MacArthur story and just a little backtrack on what happened and what I talked about. He was an undercover gay. He grew up in a very conservative household where being a homosexual was frowned upon. He didn't have many friends and was kind of a snitch growing up in high school. Then he married someone and hid his gayness from them and started having affairs and then told her, but they stayed together because back then it was kind of frowned upon to not be married, get a divorce. So they kind of stuck it out for the kids. The son didn't really like it. He started going on and assaulting people randomly. Then he started having outbursts of anger and the cops started looking kind of more into him. And then there was a couple people who went missing and his type were East Asian, East Indian, just immigrants, people like that. So that's just a little bit on him. So we ended when they found two dead bodies of one was a missing girl and the second one was a transgender. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to get into what he did, why he was caught, how he was caught, and what they did and what they thought he did, and then what he was convicted for. So let's get back into part 2. This is part 2 of the Bruce McArthur story. So to begin the story, I'm going to try to conceal Jeffrey and Dahmer. So police officers started surveilling McArthur and were kind of like, this guy's a little sketchy. So let's look into this. So they decided to apprehend him shortly after they saw a young man enter into the Park apartment on January 18, 2008 and believed the man's life was at risk. I think I remember talking about something kind of like this with the Clifford Olson case, where if you're surveillance, you're not really supposed to intervene at all, even if you do see illegal activities, because you want the person to do the legal activities and then catch them afterward. But I think this was, I don't know if that law changed because Clifford Olson was quite a while ago, but it might have. So they intervened because they assumed this kid's life was at risk oh, my speech impediment. A source told CTV News the police officers found a young man restrained on the bed when they entered MacArthur's apartment. This man was shaken but no injuries. Referred to in court as John, the man had arrived in Canada from the Middle East, was married and had not told his family he was gay. So, you know, sounds like our boy Bruce, if you ask me, minus the fact that this guy was going to be murdered, that he was gay. He had met MacArthur through a dating app called Growler, which I guess is kind of like Grindr, but not really. So I met him through Growler, and said that they had met for sex several times beforehand and had agreed to keep this relationship with MacArthur a secret and to let himself be handcuffed to MacArthur's steel bed frame. And MacArthur had a black bag over his head and tried to tape his mouth shut before police intervened. So I don't know too much about what, like, I know there is a few cases out there where somebody's died because, like, they were really into, like, kinky sex, and then the sex kind of went too far, and then the person died. So I know there's a couple cases like that, but I don't know what's too far. Like, when does it become not pleasurable for the person anymore? Is that like a thing, or I don't know, I just don't know about that, and that just seems like it's something that is a thing. So according to the CP24, the officers had a search warrant for the apartment obtained after gaining blood evidence from MacArthur's van. The police seized the electronic devices in the apartment, including 5 cell phones. Who has 5 cell phones unless you're a drug dealer? 5 computers. Again, who has 5 computers unless you're a drug dealer or doing something sketchy? 3 digital cameras and about a dozen USB flash drives. Evidence found in MacArthur's apartment shortly after the arrest promoted investigations to charge MacArthur with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the death of Andrew Kingsman and Salman Eastland. If you remember from my last video, I talked about them being missing, and that kind of like promoted the whole there's a serial killer in Toronto, preferably in the gay community and stuff like that. So that's kind of like, these are the 2 guys that they really noticed were missing and kind of like set a precedence, like we need to catch somebody. Their bodies had not been found, but police said they had a pretty good idea of how they died. They were satisfied that they had enough evidence for murder's convictions even without the bodies, which is pretty bold. But I've seen it happen. We have a couple cases where I'm from where that happened. We had one, which I might touch on, outside of where I live, where the bodies of the 2 elder people were never found, but the person was convicted of first-degree murder on both of them. It was such a sad case, and I remember driving back from university and seeing the big billboard every time I drove home about them asking to please tell me where the bodies of my parents are, and it was a really sad case. I'll probably do it on my channel one of these days. I'm going to be referencing Igsma. I can't pronounce this. I'll just call him the detective or the cop. So there's a cop that's like now dealing with this case, and at the time MacArthur arrest, the detective said the police believed he was responsible for the deaths of other men and were most concerned with identifying the victims. Doing so included kind of cooperating with other police force, because again, in Canada, we don't only just have the RCMP, which is the Royal Mounted Canadian Police Force, which kind of go all over. We also have, some provinces have their own police force, and Ontario is one of them, and Toronto is in Ontario, so they have their own police force. So they kind of had to start working together. And I know in Canada, like I talked about Pigton, it was kind of a piston match at that point, because they really don't like people coming onto their turf, especially the RCMP, and that's why sometimes these cases take so long, because it's like, well, we can do it because we're the Toronto Police Force. So it's like, we don't have forensic or dogs or any of this stuff, so like just let us come. So they had to go from across the city. He described the ongoing case as unpredictable, with hundreds of officers involved and 30 properties to be searched, because he he was a landscaper around the time he started killing people. So each place that he went to do landscaping was now technically deemed as a crime scene or a place that could have evidence. So he described the ongoing case as unpredictable just because of the 30 properties and how many things that they had to search now. The Ontario Provincial Police, the OPP, and the Province Forensic Pathology Service and the Centre of Forensic Science, the CFS, which CFS to me is Child and Family Services, so it doesn't make, that's going to confuse me, were aiding the search of MacArthur's apartment and the Leaside property. Additional charges were laid, and at the end of February, the investigation was expanded to outstanding murder cases, hundreds of missing person cases, and sudden death occurred, coordinating with the other Canadian and international forces. So now they're kind of like really digging into cold cases and stuff like that, and they're like, this guy probably did a lot of stuff. Like these aren't the only 2 murders, even though again they don't have any bodies and that much evidence. They're like, this guy probably did a lot more than what we think. These aren't just the only 2. We're looking at something a lot more crazy. Police started executing search warrants in January 18th at 5 properties associated with MacArthur and his landscaping business, 4 in Toronto and a 9-acre, 3.6 acre or HA, whichever the hectare, I think that is, property in about 200 kilometers or 120 miles, depending on where you live, northeast of Maddock, Ontario. The Maddock property and home on Collins Roads were residents of Roger Horan, a landscaper, a longtime friend of MacArthur. Another property searched was a condominium, of MacArthur's former boyfriend. These 3 properties were released back to their owners by January 23. Of greater concern, the investigators were MacArthur's high-rise apartment in the Park and Mallory Crescent residence in Leaside. They really kind of like focused in on these ones just due to the fact that's where he spent most of his time. So you kind of would expect that if there was going to be like a dead body, it'd be there. So the owners of the Leaside place residents were barred from their home January 18th so that the forensic investigators could kind of like look more into it and be like, okay, we'll see what's going on here, and could search it. The search of the property was executed to just and aided by cadaver dogs. I'm having a hard time speaking today. So they brought the cadaver dogs in just to see if they can like sniff out any, dead bodies or whatever they can find, bones. The search of the property was extended, and they had the cadaver dogs come in and members of a heavy urban search and rescue team. The cadaver dogs took a strong interest to a large planter box, so that's never good. So they took a good interest to this thing, sniffing it out, being like, check this out, buddy. So they said something was in there, and that was around January 19th. The planter had frozen to the ground, required heaters to thaw, and a large planter was wrapped up January 22nd and brought to the coroner's office. So they still don't really know if there's anything in there, but dogs are pretty good. Once you get the dogs in and stuff and they start sniffing around and start barking at stuff, it's kind of like, you're done, son. Like, that's what I would say anyways. Once the dogs get you, it's kind of hard to be like, oh, well, I might just smell like weed. When you watch like Border Security and the dog like goes hard at a couple of boxes. First of all, if I had like weed in my luggage and I was waiting for my luggage to come out and I saw a dog sniffing it and they went straight for it, I would not claim my luggage. I'm gone. I'm going with no luggage at that point. And I'm not going to be able to get back on the flight home or ever go to a plane again. That's just how I would look at it. But that's just me. So this is when things get fun. And by fun, I mean not fun, because it's not fun for the people who died. So on January 29th, which is super close to my birthday, police announced that they had found the dismembered skeleton remains of at least 3 people in 2 of the 12 large planter boxes. So he was hiding them there, which I think is crazy, but you gotta hide them somewhere, right? He probably, if they're skeleton, they've been there for quite a while. So he did a good job hiding them for as long as he did. If he just didn't mess up with that one guy, right, he would still be out murdering people as we talk right now. So they found and they seized these boxes from the Lee's side residence. Although the remains had not been identified, police had gathered enough evidence to charge MacArthur with 3 additional counts of first-degree murder, and the deaths of Maggie, a Project Houston subject, who they talked about earlier, if you watched my last video, that he was somebody else that they talked about him getting murdered. Sorosh Muhammad, who disappeared in 2015. So this is 2018. So that's quite a few years, kind of a few years after, 15, 16, 17. So 3 years. That guy was in the planter for 3 years being missing, which is actually really sad if you think about it. And Dean Lesoc, a homeless man who was never reported missing, which is also sad. I read something the other day, I think it was actually today, that there is this case in the States I was reading about a woman who was dead for 42 years sitting in front of her TV and no one reported her missing. And I just thought that was really, really sad because she didn't have anyone. And that bothered me. So I just thought I'd share that little tidbit with you guys. So a former homicide detective, Mark, said the investigation would become the largest Toronto has undertaken. Criminologists at the Western University, Professor Michael, said that all alleged methods of disposal subjected to the killer who had the development of his craft. So they were saying that this guy knew what he was doing and he kind of like already figured out how to dispose of the body, and he kind of had a pattern. Like the BTK killer, how he always did bondage and torture. This guy was like, he kind of had like his thing, open a landscape business and murder the people and put them in planters, which could be good fertilizer. Could be very good fertilizer. If you ask me, that's what I would say. I just wanted to feed the plants. And I thought, why not use people? It's kind of like Sweetie Todd once they realized that they could eat people in the meat pies, and how everyone was addicted to eating people. So they just kept on doing it. It's kind of like that. That's what I see. So he was kind of like, this guy has a pattern. He knows what he's doing. He's got his craft, and most serial killers begin in their 20s. The crimes could go back several decades. The longest run of serial killers on record, MacArthur's past as a traveling salesman, suggests that John Bradford, a forensic psychiatrist, an expert on serial murders, that police might have a provincial-wide investigation ahead of them. Toronto's crime journalist James said the allegations against MacArthur was the deadliest known serial killer in Toronto and the most prolific gay serial killer in Canada. But yeah, I would say that is too, just because he killed more people than Kala Kamoka and Paul Bernardo, which is factual. I think they were more well known because they were considered the Ken and Bobby of their time, I guess, because she was like blonde, pretty, and he looked like Ken. I don't think he was good looking at all. But that's just me. I thought he was like kind of slightly, he was weird, so that was the other thing. Not for me. It's like when people say Ted Bundy's good looking, when I don't think he was really either. But so they were saying that he was probably the most crazy serial killer because Toronto hasn't had that many serial killers, and Ted Bundy, I think he only killed 3 people altogether. He did do other things like rape and stuff like that, but he didn't actually like harm anyone too bad besides killing the 3 people. So I guess he did harm a lot of people. He just didn't, you know, kill that many. And this guy, he was charged with 2 people prior to finding the 3 dead bodies in the planter. So now he's up to 5. And you'd need 3. So the difference between a mass, like a serial killer, a spree killer, and like a mass shooting is, so a spree killer is somebody who kills multiple people in different locations, but at like one day, like one, so like the Nova Scotia 22 murders in Truro, that's a spree killing because he got a lot of people in kind of like one period of time in multiple locations. A mass shooting is when you kill multiple people in one location. And then a serial killer is when you kill multiple people over a period of time. So hopefully everyone gets that. It's a little confusing at times, but yeah. So he's considered a serial killer because what he did. And he is one of like the first known people to really like prey on gay people. And he, in Canada at least, we had like Picton, who mostly like preyed on the drug use people and stuff like that, but this is the first guy to really prey upon women, not women, oh my god, prey upon gay people in the LGBTQ community. I just realized I went on a huge rant there. So on February 8th, police announced that they found the remains of 3 people in the planters from the home, and that one of the 6 sets of the remains belonged to Andrew Kingsman. Andrew Kingsman was a guy who went to the parade fair one day and then never came home. He was reported missing right off the jump, just due to the fact that his friends said that that's not really him, that's not really Andrew. He doesn't really just go out, party, and then not come home. He's pretty like well known to come back. So he was known that he got like right off the jump, they were like, this guy's missing and something's gone wrong, and they never found him. So now they did find him. And through fingerprints, investigators said that it could have been months before all the remains were identified. Additional planters were seized from across the city, including one from Danforth neighborhood, and 2 properties in the North Rosedale were searched. Cadaver dogs were having troubles detecting scents due to the cold weather and the frozen ground. So they did really good at that one, but they couldn't really like tell if these ones had dead bodies, so they kind of had to wait. And January is super cold in Canada, depending on where you're from. If you're in Ontario or anywhere else, it can get really, really cold. So beginning of January 19th, heaters in a lodge tent were used to thaw the frozen ground in the backyard of some of the homes, just so that they could, you know, tell the cadaver dogs could do their job. And they could like really see if there was any dead bodies in these areas, which is really sad actually. Like, this guy did some damage. So in the backyards in the home and located indicated that both cadaver dogs in the ground, that on the radar, the forensic pathologist was expected to take at least 10 days to excavate the remains by hand. Another forensic anthropologist, not anthropologist, I don't know how to, I think it might be anthropologist, came, Dr. Kathy, who arrived to oversee the excavation. They did not find any signs of soil from previous digging. The excavation of 2 lines at the home was conducted, like sewer lines, on February 13th, and the section of 1 line was removed for testing, just because they just wanted to see if maybe he was flushing anything. Because I know a lot of serial killers, they do flush remains of people down the drain, because that's just something they do. And so, you know, you gotta, like, at this point, you're dealing with a pretty heavy case, a pretty good serial killer, somebody who's, you know, you're now sitting at 5 dead bodies, and there could potentially be more. So you got to take all the precautions you possibly can at this point, just to see if you can find anything else. So they kind of considered the house on the lee side. I just bumped it, so it's going crazy now. There we go. They kind of considered the house on the lee side ground zero because that's where they found all the dead bodies and everything right off the beginning. And the police established a command post on the property. And on February 10th and 11th, the search of the house was completed and it was released to the owners after more than 3 weeks. The owners requested that the police keep the crime scene tape up around their yards to deter reporters by whom they were feeling increased harassment from, which is like something that, you know, when it comes to like cases like this is one of the biggest cases that Canada's had in quite a while. So yeah, reporters are going to be jumping at the gun trying to get the first bite, right? Like that's what they do. It took hundreds of hours for them to really go through all the evidence and everything that they had. The detective on the scene suspected some of the murders occurred, like some of the places that they did. It took them several weeks before searching MacArthur's bedroom, where they expected to find the bulk of the evidence. The search concluded on May 11th, having occupied 10 forensic officers for nearly 4 months. So it was a pretty big case. They took more than 18,000 photographs and collected over 1,800 items. The detective noted that thoroughness required as the first murder was believed to have occurred, but occurred about 8 years later, the one that they found. In searches of the Leenside home, MacArthur's apartment made up the largest forensic evidence conducted by the TPS. On February 23rd, MacArthur was charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Skandara Navarna. I'm sorry, I'm butchering these names, but I can't pronounce them. Subject of the Project Houston. Navarre's remains and those of Muhammad were identified through dental records and had been recovered from the planters at the Leaside home. So this guy was killing people and planting them. So on March 5th, police held a press conference and released a photo of the unidentified deceased man alleged to be another one of MacArthur's victims. They had exhausted their options in identifying the man and hoped that the public could help. Police later received 500 tips regarding the photo and checked on 22 potential identification. They also announced that the 7th set of remains had been recovered from the Lisa planter. So now we're sitting at 7. Dr. Michael, Ontario's chief forensic pathologist, said that his organization had never before been involved in an investigation with such a scope, drawing on the skills of each member and their unique challenges, such as scientific issues related to decomposition, postmortem, and dismemberment. So when he said that, that's like, this guy didn't just kill them. Like, he buried them, he dismembered them, he did a lot of things. And you, like, when someone's like, when a body is dead that long and it's just a skeleton, I don't know how much somebody can really get from them. You can't really tell the time of death. How you can maybe tell how they died if you can have like, if the guy's like head was bashed and stuff like that, but you can't even tell like where they died, how the position was, because all the blood, when you die, wherever you're laying when you're dead, all the blood rushes to that, so they can tell if the body was moved. So if I die laying on my back's going to be like black and blue while the blood goes. I forget what it's called. So if someone moves my body and they find me on my side, but my whole back's all black and blue, then they can tell that my body was moved. So there's a lot of cool things that they can really check. So I did my eyeliner off camera just because we all know how much I struggle with that. So on April the 11th, MacArthur was charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder and in the death of Aldabas Fahiz. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing these names, but I just can't. He was at that point charged with the deaths of all 5 men from the Project House and the Project Prism investigation, and charges came as Finn's remains were identified from the Leaside planters along with those of Eason and Liswick. Investigators had finished the search of the Leaside planters, from which the remains of all but Kahad had been identified. They had 1 set of unidentified remains, and they had also searched 8 additional planters for elsewhere in the city, which he had contained no human remains. So they went to like all of his areas where he worked in the past just to see if they could like find something, right? So on April the 19th, MacArthur was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder in the death of Christian Kamir, Kanagaratnam. So if you know how to pronounce that, let me know. Whose remains were the 7th set identified from the Lee site planner. Police said his name had not come from many tips generated by the release of his post-mortem photograph, but that he had been identified with help from the undisclosed international agency. The Kanagaratnam was an asylum seeker who was under a deportation order and had not been reported missing. Police said that they would look into it. That they would look into his name and was not listed as a missing person. He had last had contact with his family August 2015, and police believe that he had been killed between September 3rd and December 14th of 2015. So the scope of the investigation was expanded at the end of 2018 of February. It always goes, I just want a little bit of a red lip, and I find it just takes over. So, cool. So it expanded all the way till then. At the end of February, I don't like this lip, I'm going to take this lip off. A more neutral lip. That's what I wanted. So looking for outstanding murder cases, hundreds of missing people cases, cases of sudden death occurrence. Coordinating with the Canadian and international forces, police had received tips from around the world, including countries MacArthur had vacationed to. The detective said the investigation would take years. Police source told the National Post that MacArthur had covered his tracks using aliases online, using payphones instead of cell phones, and avoiding areas with surveillance cameras. The source suggested that MacArthur was targeting vulnerable men who did not have a fixed address or had not told their families that they were gay yet. Detective Sergeant Stacy Gallant of the TPS Homicide Unit and the squad of the Cold Case Unit said that the active crime scenes of the investigation took precedence over cold cases. Each of 600 cold cases was being looked at for consideration for their attention. They drew up a list of 15 homicide cold cases linked to the gay village and fitted the general profile and the victims identified thus far. Investigators began reviewing these cold cases dating between 1975. I feel like I just drank a bunch of tea and now I'm like burpy. In 1997 for the possibility connection to MacArthur. By mid-July, forensic testing related that the cold case was underway, searching for links to MacArthur. The cold case included some of the series of brutal murders in the gay village between 1975 and 1978, when MacArthur would have been 26 years old, and that's when the doctor earlier said that he would have started his serial killing spree. They usually start when they are in their 20s. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. And walking just a few blocks south of the gay village, the victims of these crimes, all gay men, were found in their homes, naked, tied to the bed, and stabbed or beaten to death in the manner described as an overkill. And in October 2008, homicide detective David Dickinson said that they had not yet found any links between MacArthur and the cold cases. So, like, you could say, oh, well, this kind of, like, could fit MacArthur, but there's such an unknown. Because if you don't really have the evidence stuff, you can't really like charge him for being, just because he did kill all these other guys doesn't mean that he killed these people. There might be somebody else, right? If there's no evidence. Investigators had planned to return to the 30 properties associated with MacArthur in April or May, when the frozen ground had been thawed, allowing cadaver dogs to operate with greater accuracy. The detective said that there was partially interested in the excavating of 3 properties. The excavation included a return visit to the Leaside residence where remains had been found. Additional tip-offs caused the number of properties to surge. So they went from 30 to 75 and then 100, some of them outside the city. A team of 7 cadaver dogs from the other GTA police force were searching the properties. By the second week of May, the search had concluded. By the first week of June, following up investigations had been considered whether or not additional searches were required. So they did find everything that they needed in the first place. They weren't really finding anything else. So they were kind of like, do we need to keep going or could we just wait? So between July 4th and the 13th, 20 police investigators conducted. Let me a second. I feel like I need to fix my eyebrows. So 20 police investigators conducted an excavation of the forest ravine behind the Lisa property and began sifting through a large compost pile that preceded the guidance, trained dogs, and forensic anthropologists. And they collected human remains almost every day of this search. On July 20th, it announced that the remains belonged to Kayhan, Kayhan, and the remains of all of McArthur's alleged victims had been identified. The detective said that they had no evidence suggesting McArthur was in connection of any other deaths, although the investigation into the cold case would continue. So even though they have him and they can't find anything else on him for the cold cases, they're still going to look into it. But, you know, they don't know for sure. And the other thing I don't get is, I see this a lot on like shows, but if somebody was a murderer and then they admit to killing all these people, which happens a lot where they're like, yeah, I did that. And then the person's like, well, you also killed this one. And they're like, no, I didn't. And they just like deny. I usually like have a hunch that they didn't kill that person, or I think that they didn't, even though like all the lines like look up to that person that they did. I always am like, why aren't they claiming this one? That's just another thing that just popped into my head. Waterloo Regional Police contacted Ontario's Serial Predator Crime Investigation Coordinator to inquire about McArthur in 2002. Disappearance of Dave McDermott from the downtown Kitchener, John Riley, and Meaford, Ontario, is another possible victim. He had gone to Toronto to find work in landscaping, planning to stay in a shelter at the Church of Wesley, and disappeared in May of 2013. So they kind of were like, maybe this is him. So in January of 2018, a publication ban was ordered on the court's proceeding limited that can be reported to the media. McArthur was detained at the Toronto South Detention Centre. Torstar News Service reported that March 19, 2018, that McArthur had been held in segregation and under consistent suicide watch. As of November 5th, 2018, McArthur remained held in the Toronto South Detention Centre. He made his first court appearance on January 19, 2008, represented by lawyer Marina Sahil. Sally. He made another brief courtroom appearance on January 29th, 2018, and subsequently attended via video link after that, represented by W. Kevin Rosemel of the League of Defense from the Edward H. Roller Partners. Roseman's biograph and the forum website stated that he believed guilty pleas out only be entered as a last resort, so they were going to fight this. Roseman noted that at the 2018 February 14th hearing that it was McArthur's third court appearance without disclosure, which is not that great. You kind of really need disclosure. It's kind of like the first thing. Disclosure is kind of like what evidence that they're going to throw at you during a trial kind of thing. So let the person know. Crown Attorney Mike Clayton said his office received disclosure from the police on February 13, 2008. It was in the process of venting and screening it. And mid-March the same year, Clinton said one package of disclosure had been made to McArthur's lawyer, with more to be expected in the following weeks. Some exceeded over 10,000 pages, owing to the case's complexity. On April 25th, 2018, Clayton said more evidence would be turned over to the defense before the next scheduled court date, May 23rd, 2018, at which time defense counsel said that they were counting to receive disclosure, and on June 22nd, 2018, the Crown stated that the disclosure of all evidence was sent to the defense. So I see where the lawyer is coming from, the defense lawyer being like, yo, we need the disclosure. But if they're just doing like docket days, you can just keep pushing that back and back and back and back. You don't need disclosure right off the jump. Unless you see that like, yo, these guys got mad evidence on us, like there's no way we're going to win this case, we should just do a guilty plea. But if you're going to keep adjourning it until a trial day, you don't need your disclosure right away, because this is obviously a huge case, so it's going to go up to like the Court of Queen's Bench and stuff like that. So you're going to have like a pre-trial where you can see all the evidence, if the guy's going to just deny it the whole entire time, and then have your trial day. So the judicial pre-trial was scheduled for June 20th, 2018. The closed-door meeting with the Crown and the defense attorneys and the judge was to address issues such as resulting the case without a trial, such as entering a guilty plea. Trial lengths and was an issue just because there's so much evidence, and you're going to have to maybe get a jury depending on what he picks. Daniel Lear, a Toronto defense lawyer and the former Crown prosecutor, suggests that the Crown would consider serving charges, like lessening his charges. Noted that a long and complicated trial could put a burden on the juries and create a risk for a mistrial. So why that would be is they can go home, they can get evidence from home. Like with a case like this, you kind of have to be like, have no clue about the court system at all, not be watching the news, be like a hermit, and have no biased opinions. So somebody could be against gays, somebody could be watching the news and seeing this all unfold, somebody could be known to the judicial system, somebody could go home and then their wife starts talking about it, or husband starts talking about it, or partner starts talking about it. So there's tons of ways that there could have been a mistrial. Kevin Bryan, a former detective with York Regional Police Forensic Unit, considered the amount of evidence to be catalogued and disclosed and believed a trial was years away. This was going to be a huge trial. And the other thing is, if you go to Court of Queen's Bench, you can choose if you want to judge and jury, if you just want to judge, if you just want to do a guilty plea and have a sentencing. There's tons of other things you can choose. A lot of people who think that they can get off or are going to have some sympathy towards their case usually do a jury, because you really just have to sway one of them to have a mistrial, or to even have just the slight amount of doubt that the person didn't do it, and then you're out, right? So several media outlets had applied for the release of being able to report MacArthur's trial, but it was a tricky one. In court of October 5th of 2018, Clayton said the discussion was ongoing. Representing by James, MacArthur appeared in court in person in October 22nd, 2018, and waived his rights to a preliminary hearing, not consistent the weight of the evidence which warrant a trial. MacArthur was ordered to be tried for 8 counts of first-degree murder, and on November 5th, 2018, he appeared at the Supreme Court of Justice before the Justice John McMahon, who noted a 2016 Supreme Court of Canada ruling, and by which the trial could concluded before August 2020. Following a judicial pre-trial on November 30th, MacArthur appeared in court and was told that his trial would begin January 6, 2020. So that was last year, and was likely to last 3 to 4 months. So on January 28, 2019, the TPS announced an anticipated significant development in MacArthur's case the following day. Police quired outside the courthouse for 6 a.m. following a major snowstorm, and the hearing was moved to a larger available courtroom. And on January 29th, 2019, before the Justice John McCone, Arthur pled guilty to each of the 8 first-degree murder charges that he was facing, ending the possibility of a trial at all. So reading from the agreement statement, so he just said he did it. So he had so once you do a guilty plea, that's it, that's all. You can't really go back on it. You're done. So they had so many evidence. They had Ziploc bags on him. They had beard shavings. They had some photographs. They had fur coats and hats. They had sought out exploitation and vulnerabilities of his victims that had crimes scenes, and he used sex to lure them in, killing many of his victims in his bedroom. Strangulation. He had photos showing a rope around his victim's neck, twisted with a metal ball, wrapped in tape. Mechanisms to control them with strangulations. They had so much DNA on this guy that it was kind of like, if he went to trial, it would have almost been a waste of time, just due to the fact that he did it. He had the photos. They had photos of him in it. Like, the dude's like standing there with a knife, like, and like stabbing the guy. You doing it. You got it. You're the murderer. Why do we need to waste trial time, like a year and a half? Like, they caught him in 2018 and wasn't gonna have a trial until 2020. Like that's just a waste. So McArthur's sentencing hearing began February 4th, 2019, and it charges to the criminal code permit of the judge to order parole ineligibility period severe because of his offense, and the offense is committed after each year, which would include 6 of McArthur's murders. The Crown asked for a 50-year parole ineligibility, just because, like, he probably would have been dead. Because he had lack of remorse, too. The dude didn't care that he did what he did. McArthur declined to address the court, and then he pretty much betrayed his victims, and the effect of his crimes on the community of the LGBT community was so drastic, and how he had been a danger up into his arrest that he would have kept going, and how the only reason why he did get arrested was because they kind of had a hunch about him and he was going to murder another dude. So that's why they caught him. So yeah, he was just a bad guy. McArthur's defense counsel said such a sentence would be harsh and unjustifiable given all involved in the proceedings, and on February 8th, 2019, Justice McCann sentenced McArthur to life imprisonment with no parole eligibility for 25 years. McArthur described the crime as pure evil and stated that McArthur showed no evidence of remorse and would have continued killing had he not been apprehended. Despite this, he felt that the sentence should not be egregious, given McArthur's age and his guilty plea. McArthur could apply for parole when he is 91. But McCammon said that it would be highly unlikely he would be granted parole, and the Toronto Sun noted that McArthur is overweight with type 2 diabetes and is unlikely to live long. I just like how they toss that in at the end. I am going to put on my lashes and I'm going to give you guys my final thoughts. All right, I'm back with my final thoughts on this case. So my final thoughts on this case was, I know there was a lot of controversy. There was people getting mad at the use of serial killer. Right off the jump, they found 2 dead bodies and like, we got ourselves a serial killer. So people were pretty pissed about that. It brought a lot of fear into the community. The other thing people were mad about was victim blaming, due to the fact that people were saying, oh, well, they're gay, they're used to the nightlife, so they need to learn how to watch out. Again, you can't blame the victim for something that happened to them. If I go out jogging or something and I get attacked, that's not my fault for going out jogging at night. People shouldn't have to watch what they're doing just because of the actions of others. You need to learn just to control yourself. So the victim blaming was a big one. They said there was racism involved just due to the fact that he was targeting minorities. There was a lot of, I realized I didn't put any mascara on my bottom lashes. There was a lot of controversy with this case when it came out. So again, he's in jail forever. The one thing I didn't really like about this case was the fact that he was like, yo, we're going to trial. Like, we're doing all this stuff. Like, this dude had photos, he had evidence, he had everything pointing to him being the killer. And yet he still was like, nah, we're going to go to trial. Like, thank God he didn't, because it's just a waste of time. That's all it is a waste of time. I feel like this one eye looks crazy. Oh, might just be me. So I just thought it was a waste of time. It was a waste of time for everyone. It was just like, just go to jail. Like, you did it. We got you. You're done. Like, you're going to jail no matter what. So that was the other thing that really made me mad. The one thing I did really enjoy was how, when they did find the dead bodies and the people going missing, how quick that they were to try to make a safe environment for the people of the LGBTQ, dating apps, trying to make it safer, trying to make a safe area for people to meet on dates, getting together really quick with the communities and the police force and everything, putting in different projects to get the evidence and make sure that this process was a lot quicker, and to get the person who was doing it. So that was some of the really positives that I saw come out of that, because a lot of the times they see a couple dead bodies and they're like, oh, well, she's a prostitute. Oh, well, he's gay. Why does it matter, right? Like, that's usually what we see. But in this time, they're like, well, we need to think of a way to make it safer for these people to go out and express who they are and do what they love to do and not have to worry about getting stabbed or murdered or whatever. So I thought that was super great on the behalf of the Toronto Police Force and the RCMP and all those people. Like, that was amazing. But yeah, those are my final thoughts about the Bruce McArthur case. This was the newest serial killer that Canada has had. It was, again, like last year, he was supposed to be convicted, but they did convict him in 2019. He is doing 1 year of life in prison, which I believe is the only thing you can do in Canada. It's just 1 solid year. It doesn't matter how many people you murder, you just get 1 life sentence. They can like try you for multiple life sentence, but at the end of the day, you're going to do like 25 years. Like they said, he's old. So guy ain't getting out until he's 91. And by that time, like they said, he should be dead. Hopefully. But again, that's the other thing that bothers me. Like when he was on suicide watch and stuff, like, buddy, you knew what you were doing. You were murdering these men. You didn't think you were going to get caught. Why are you on suicide watch? Own up. Put your chin up and own up to what you did. You murdered these people, so now you shouldn't be on suicide watch. It was the same with like Jeffrey Epstein when he killed himself because he was going to go away for jail for being a pedo. Well, what did you think was going to happen? You think you're just going to walk away living your best life? No, like if you're going to jail, they're not going to treat you dandy. You're there for a reason. Like that made me really mad. Don't go on suicide watch because you decided to. You were living your best life for the last like 8 to 10 years murdering people. And now you're going to be, oh, poor me, I have to go to jail for 25 years. Well, you're lucky you don't get the death penalty. Like that irked me. I was irked about that. But I'm just going to set my face. So we're all done. Final look, purple, like I said. Hopefully next week, Jeffrey and Dahmer will be off my face. That would be great. And remember, I am going to do my final giveaway. The giveaway will be linked. I will let the person know who won on my Instagram. So it's closed. The giveaway is closed and you will find out probably around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock tomorrow when I am off work who won my giveaway. And I'm super, super excited about it. So thank you all for entering. And again, for those who watch, my name is Jo MacLean and I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday for you to do true crime and my makeup. So I'm glad that you guys stuck around. Remember to like my socials and to give myself a like and subscribe down low. And I want to thank each and every one of you guys for coming out, watching this video, and just enjoying this with me. I knew this was a long one. I know this was a two-parter, first two-parter. Let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed it, if you liked it, just let me know down below. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. And thank you guys for coming out and enjoying this fine Thursday with me and this Thursday night. So thank you again, guys, so much. And I will see you guys on Tuesday. Bye.